Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of this podcast, A New Direction. For those of you who might have been following us for a while, I'm sure that by now you know what we are all about. But for those of you joining us for the first time, we would like to reiterate that to let you know that A New Direction podcast is not a religious group or a religious organization. We try to let you know that we are reaching you from a source which we described as the storehouse. And if you check out our previous videos, you'll see what our description of the storehouse represents. But for those of you joining us for the first time, we'll briefly run through that to let you know that the storehouse represents the person in which the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of creation, has decided to make himself available in. To have that help we all have been crying for reach us. In simple terms, you can just say the storehouse represents God as a person in the midst of we as people. Just as it was emphasized in Isaiah, the prophecy of the birth of God with the people. In our previous episode, we talked about the tongue and what it represents. We talked about the tongue as being the source or the origin of every man. And we looked at it from the angle of the source being the nature, the tongue rather, being the nature of man and that of the Spirit of God. And we had that discussion because we were talking about the issue of speaking with tongues, which we as people know as speaking in tongues. And we tried to describe what that actually means, to explain and let you all know that the tongue doesn't represent the organ inside of our mouth, but the source, just as I said earlier, of every man. We described that we as humans have that tongue, which is the source of man, which is why the result or the end of every human is in death because of that nature of man, which is in us, which is sinful, and as a result of that sin is death. We also talked about what the tongue, which is the new tongue, now represents. It doesn't represent or imply us speaking in languages that we certainly don't have any idea about. But we describe the tongue, which is the new tongue, as being a new lifestyle which would be introduced to us as a people when the person of God is made available in our midst.
Yes.
And why I'm drawing our minds or our attention back to that episode of the tongue is based on what we'll be discussing today, which is crossover, the term crossover. But before we dive deeply into what we have in store for you today, I would like to introduce my brethren who are on the forum with me today. We have a familiar face, Brother Kufre.
Good morning to you all.
We have Sister Adugo.
Good morning.
We have Brother Savior.
Good morning.
We also have Sister Yuti.
Good morning to you.
And we have Brother Camillus joining us all the way from Osun State.
Good morning.
And as usual, I myself am Brother David. We have a video which we'll be playing down the line as our discussion goes on. But today we'll be trying a different approach, meaning that we'll be letting you see or understand what the crossover is from our own perspective, or rather from the source which we always say to reach you from, before we get to see or hear what is being spoken of in the video we have for you today. So without further ado, let's get into it. We'll be talking about the storehouse, everybody. So I would like to, I said we'll be talking about crossover, not the storehouse, rather. So I would like to put it out like a question. Say, what does the term crossover imply? What does it signify? I'm putting it more now like a question to all of us on the forum, because I feel like that's what's going to kickstart our discussion.
Yes.
The answer to this question now, what does the term crossover imply?
Well, like we always say in our different moments that we have, we keep bringing the fact that everything that is written in the Bible or in the scripture, as one will call it, is what the Spirit conceived. But in the world, we have the way that we men drive, that is function.
Yeah.
I call it functioning. Function in the sense that even though we don't know what we are doing, we have the way the Spirit allowed us to function.
Yes.
And that way we keep using it there as an idea of men. We call it the ideology of men.
Yes.
So the Spirit has a concept, which is the plan that he has planned, that this is what I'm coming to do when I'm with my people. This is how I'm going to carry out my teaching, my standard that will bring life to humanity as a whole. But he put it as a concept. He put it as a prophecy of what will come to be. What will come to be is not what has passed. But because it's a spiritual concept, so when we as humans are reading it, we read it as an event that has passed.
Yes.
So that is where we see, when we keep talking about the ideology of men, because if you see today now, in our world, we have everything that the Spirit ever put in writing or spoken about. We have the way we function with them.
Yes.
And that our function makes the thing like the thing is not working. I use the word like because no matter how you think that something is working, even you yourself, you know that this thing looks like it's not working. But here we know that nothing is working. Nothing is working. Yes. So, because when you apply something that, I've said it before in one of the moments, that if you are supposed to apply a certain thing to bring out a certain result, and you went and used another thing to apply to that thing, it will never give you the result that thing's supposed to bring.
Yes.
So that is the challenge we have today in our world.
Yes.
Every of the topic that we ever brought out and tried to discuss, we have the way of the Spirit, we have the way of man. And that is the same thing when we are going to be talking about crossover today.
Yes.
There is the way of man and there is the way of God. Yes. I want everyone listening to understand that when we use this word, the way of man and the way of God, it's not that any man ever established his way. But it is because we keep saying that the Lord, being the Spirit of creation, that is why he's the Lord of hosts. He's the one that comes as man first to carry out the living in everyone. But that living in a wrong way. Yeah. He call it the bondage of corruption.
Yes.
And he come again in a vessel, in one that he called the choosing one. You can call him the Holy Ghost. You can call him the Son of Man. You can call him the Comforter. You can call him whatever title that you want to. But because it's not a title, it's a function that that person is coming to carry out, to show the capacity of God in the generation of a people.
Yes.
So that is the one now that is going to come in to show the fulfillment of my ways are not your ways. Neither my thoughts are your thoughts. Yes. So when we are sitting down here discussing, we are discussing based on the thought that the person has come to show us and how that thought can bring the proper solution that we have been desiring for.
Yes.
So for me not to go far, we are dwelling on crossover. Yes. You said something before that when we talk about the tongue, which is where you can also take the crossover from there.
Yes.
Because I said that the ways of all the program that has to do with God is the program of man and God.
Yes.
Man and God. Yes. Man and God. All over the Bible that you see. But why is it man first before God? Is that thing that we said before. That the tongue, which is the tongue of death, where the power lies,
yes,
is the spirit of man, which is the spirit of sin.
Yes.
And every of us has been dwelling under that.
Yes.
All of us.
Yes.
So when you are now talking about the new tongue, we are talking about the birth of the Spirit of God in a generation to bring out the standard of living that humanity must live. But he said, as many as have received that one, that sign of new tongue will follow them because it's a new life.
Yes.
So when you are seeing crossover is a simple term that is used to show a work that one must undergo, being under that sinful state, that spirit of man, how you can walk to cross from that death state to the life state.
Yes.
I put it in a simple term, like I said, so that a layman can understand.
Yes.
When you know that the first phase of man was, we were introduced with that death, unaware. It's not our choice. Because the creature, as he said, was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who have subjected him to that same bondage. So, crossover is a process that one, like I said, must undergo when God is available.
Yes.
You can't go carry out that process when God is not there. You remember when we talked about how the sons of Levite, how the people can be purged from Malachi 3, from 1. That there is one first, the messenger, who is God himself. Because there are a lot of things today that when we see in the scripture, we just get confused. You see 1 John, it's like 1 John comes somewhere and, talk to people about one Christ that will come from somewhere. That's what we see. But if you look at even the word of Jesus Christ in the Bible, and you also look at that Malachi 3 from 1, you see that the messenger of God
himself
is not another person. He's he himself.
Yes.
But he confess in that spirit that we need to at least accommodate man, to instruct, bring himself in a way that he can help humanity. Yes. He can instruct those who will see him face to face and correct their ways first. So that now they can now become the one that, like he said, that the world, the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of God. It means God will be available. Then prepare those who will function as a son before the world can hear from them, which is now the guide that the people will have. So you see that part of death that we have been involved in, that process of change, that process that we must undergo, is what will bring a crossover to any man. Yes. It's not a 31st of December that you use one night to come and sing song and clap hand, because that's what we do. So that one now is an idea of man.
Yes.
But it cannot yield anything. That's why after the crossover night, I still remember one of my madam, I will call it, back in Port Harcourt here. It was on the crossover day, what we call crossover day, which is the 31st of December. They went to church in the night to do crossover. And the boy crossed over truly. He crossed over because coming back, the young man has an accident with them. Just to cross road, he died at the spot. So all the prayer that they pray for crossover, it didn't function for the other one. It functioned for this one. Because for them, for us, that is a prayer now. You pray not to die. You need to cross over to another year. But you see, the crossover is picking you to another level. So you see, that is where we keep making this mistake. And everyone in the entire world are believing that that is what crossover is. So crossover is a mystery word. Mystery in the sense that as long as it's the Spirit of God that is going to bring a function that will bring us to that state, then we can't say crossover is 31st night of December.
But you see, with this thing you said now, it just reflected me on most of the crossovers I've gone to. You see, one of the main, will I say, prayer points, because that's how we have been putting it. You say prayer points is that this year, say death shall not see you. This year you shall not die. This year you shall see next year. That is the heart cry of everybody, not to die. You understand? But in the real sense, just like Bro Kufre said, in the real sense of crossover, the crossover is meant to really achieve that. The crossover is really meant to remove death from man, yes, and make man cross over into life so that he won't die again. Yes. That is the real purpose of the crossover. You understand? Yeah. But you see, because of what we do is based on our ideology, not according to the concept. That is why no matter how we have stayed in this earth for how many thousands of years doing crossover every year, it doesn't still stop death from happening. And just like the story Bro Kufre said now, the same night after this crossover, after praying in the church that you don't want to die this year, you leave the church, you die. So of what use was all your ranting in the church for, if after you finish doing that, nothing is achieved?
That's why we have said on this forum that the reason for the establishment of this forum, of this podcast or program we have, is to let everyone know of the misconceptions we have about spiritual things.
Yes.
That's basically what it's all about.
And the new birth.
And the birth of the person of God in our midst. And you can see, to just summarize all what Akufre has said and Ada briefly, you just realize that all we have been talking about on this forum, if not on this particular episode, but on previous ones, have all been about the crossover as well.
Yeah.
It might not basically have that name, or
Yes.
not necessarily have that tag or title of crossover.
Yeah.
But basically, that's what we have all been talking about. Crossover.
Yeah.
How we as men can transition from the state of death to the state of life.
Yes. Which is better.
And that is basically what all
Crossover is all about,
Yes.
yes.
Because we have all been, we have talked about how we as men have that nature of man which is sinful. And it's as a result of that nature of man which is sinful, that's why we die. Not because we were meant to die, but because of the nature in us, we are subject to die.
Yes.
So the crossover is moving from that state of death to the state of life,
Yeah.
which comes about when the person of God is available. That's now what broadens our podcast or our forum, to let the people know, not just as an information that we pass to them, which is what we try to say. Like, for instance, we can just say that this is what crossover is all about, and we just let everybody go.
Yes.
No, but we go an extra mile to let everyone know that there's a way it can be achieved.
Yes.
And basically, that's what sets us apart from every other thing you might see on the internet.
Yes.
Because we have been talking about how men, or how man has, or have rather, established ways of doing things that you might look and you might say is of the world or something like that. But we always keep on saying that men didn't come up with anything by themselves. So even this medium in which we are trying to reach the people is not because we are striving for the same things others are striving for when they do things like this. But it has dawned on us that to reach out to the people, to let people know of what is happening, this is basically the most effective, if not the only medium to do that.
Yes.
As of now.
Yes.
As of now, yeah.
Yeah, as of now. I can't forget to put that as of now, because who knows what
Next
Yeah.
comes.
So that's basically it. And so I think,
There's something I want to bring in
okay,
before you bring the what you just think now, because I know where you are going to is to the video, but
Yeah.
there's something that as we were talking, something just came to my mind, and that we need to clear as we just talk about crossover, so that wherever we are playing this video, everyone will hear it and see what we are going to be pointing out from the video.
Yes.
You see, from a brief introduction we just did now about what crossover is,
yeah,
there's another thing standing aside, which is how one can achieve that. We just explained, just in few words, what is crossover. Like you said, if it was just to explain to a people, we can just sit down and, we bring different explanation, but of what effect will it change in our life? Nothing.
Yeah.
But we bring a brief introduction, which is the explanation, to let all our people know how this explanation can be achieved, which is now interpretation.
Yes.
By the person of the Spirit, as in having a capacity to make it work in our lives. So when you see from where I was describing the crossover from, you see that in everything we do, crossover is always at the night.
Yes.
Crossover always take effect or happen in the night.
Yes.
Like what we do 31st night against that 1st of January.
Yes. Which is
So,
morning.
but there's a significance of that word, night. You know, we keep saying here, every time we sit down, we greet the people, good morning. Sometimes where we are now can be 4 p.m.
Yes.
But we say good morning. Sometimes where we are now can be 2, okay, like now it's 2 to 2. This is some minutes to 2.
A.M.
2 a.m. But wherever some persons are, it may be around 4. Or how do you call it? Around 10 or 12.
A.M.
Or around a.m.
P.M. A.M.
You see,
Whatever.
the difference is that if we were to say good day wherever you are or good night wherever you are, our own will be good morning.
Yes.
But we keep using the word good morning wherever somebody is. It means there is a reason why we use that word good morning.
Yes.
And as we are going to play this video, you hear it. What is the significance of morning? And what is the significance of night? Let me dwell on the night first, based on the crossover that we just explained now.
Yes.
That night has a significance. And that significance of that night is where the spirit is functioning that no man can understand what is going on.
Yes.
Because if you are dwelling on a process that's supposed to bring a change in you, like we talk about caught up, where they call rapture. Remember we talked about rapture?
Yeah, we did.
And that word is caught up in the Bible. And we said that when somebody has been taking that up, you can't know by sight.
Yes.
It's a mystery that only the person that is in the process of that change can know.
Yes.
The spirit knows it and now make the change in the person. Sometimes the person may not even know quickly. He will not quickly notice it. But because it's a change that is inside that need to bring out a fruit that is for life. So night is a significance of that spirit where it's functioning that no man can really understand. So you see that you are in the process of that change that he alone knows when the time is approved by him
Yes.
to affect that change in you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see? But in the other way around, that night can be complicated for any man. Because it can also signify when the spirit is doing things that you don't understand. It could be in that understanding that it's like it's a bad thing that is happening to you.
Yes.
So you see, but because no man can figure out what is going on at night, he said, no, as a spirit, I always make myself available in the body so that I can guide my people. And when that is done, that achievement of making himself available in a body is done in the midst of a people, he becomes morning.
Yes.
Because
That's
the
when
day
starts.
has broken for people to hear from the source of that guide, that is that spirit, and guide the people on what they did not understand when the spirit was working without a vessel.
Yes.
Brings about a new dawn.
Since you have brought this in, I would like to now merge it together before we move to the video.
Okay.
So instead of just saying crossover, just as you introduced what night is and gave a brief description and why it was necessary for you to mention that
Yeah.
crossover night, meaning a change from the state of man to this, which is the state of death, to the state of life. And having described what night is just saying that crossover, it happens, or how it happens, it's not
man-made
something
thing.
you can comprehend.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not something you can just see and know.
Or pronounce with mouth.
Not see. It's not something you can sight at hand and know what's happening.
Yes.
It's not something you can comprehend. So it's just a significance of who is doing it
Yeah.
Yes.
and how he does it.
Yes.
So a crossover means changing from the state of man to
The state of
the state of life, which is God.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have said that cannot happen unless that person of God, who is that life, is involved.
Yeah.
So that's where the night now comes in.
Yeah.
The night now becomes a means by which that person does that work in a person.
Yeah.
And that work is not visually seen. It's not something, even when you see, you can't comprehend, you can't understand what's happening. All you know is that at the end, something has happened, just as Brother Kufre described. A work has been done, and you get to see the change. So that's why it's a night, because he's the one that does the work. That's why we have been told in the scripture that every man should make hay and walk while it's day. Because the night comes when no man can walk.
Yeah.
That's because that is when that person is on ground to do the work. And it's not because it's a time thing, night, as in it's dark. No. But that darkness that night represents signifies a means that we can't see, we can't sight, we can't understand how it happens.
Yeah.
So the work that a man has to do in the day is just as Brother Kufre described. After that change has
Listening to the voice.
occurred, after that change has occurred, you now get to see how to walk. And you can only walk when it's day,
Yes.
when it's morning.
You can see,
That's what it
yes.
signifies. So a man can only walk when he can see.
Yes.
And a man can know to walk
When
when he cannot see.
That's what
But you are saying something. A man can walk
Yeah.
when he cannot see.
Yes.
So if you are walking, it is because
Speak to
you
your
are
mic.
seeing.
Yeah.
If you are walking, it's because you're seeing.
Yes.
So, but what happened before? You weren't seeing. So the night also is when you weren't seeing. Somebody has to make you see. All men, we were all born blind, and that is our night. So the one who is the day has to make us see. So the work of making us see is walking in our night because we're born blind. So when we
Not to
now,
cut you short, not to cut you short, but the terms, we try to use terms that would clearly describe what we are trying to say. When we are saying that as men we can't walk, or that we can't walk at night, we are not describing a time of day. That's not what we are describing. What we are describing is a state. When they say man cannot walk at night, it's just when we talked about the passage that says, without me, he can do nothing.
Yeah.
Meaning, you can do things, but as long as I'm not involved in it,
They will amount to
it
nothing.
all amounts to nothing.
Yeah.
So when you say man cannot walk at night, all you are just simply saying is that man is in that state where he is doing things without that person of God.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, just as you have said, that he is not
Doing something. Yes.
But
But it
it's
will
not
never yield
it's not
the
considered.
purposeful fruit.
Yeah.
That's reward. It
It's not
cannot.
considered as anything.
Yes.
You get, it's not considered as anything.
Yes.
So that's why he's the one making that description, saying that that man cannot walk at night because he is the one who does the work at night, and that his night is not referring to time of day, but a means by which the men cannot understand what he does, because we have also been led to understand that he does his things the way he does it, and no man has seen it. That even when ears hear that they tingle, that's because his things are once and for all. It's not something that you can he does and you can be like, I've seen something like this somewhere. No. And he reserves his things for himself alone, so man cannot discern it, because the nature of man is to want to feel like we
understand
we
things.
understand and know things. We know everything. So he keeps his parts hidden from man, which is why we are talking about the idea of man and the concept of God, because men have driven with their ideas, while God has kept his concept away,
Amen.
hidden from man. So to just clarify what you are trying to say is that when men are walking and it's not yet day, because that spirit has
Of
not
light has not
effected
come.
that change. That light has not come. All they do doesn't amount to anything. That's why it says man can only walk in the day. And that day signifies light. And that light can only come when God is involved. So he does his work at night by a means no one can comprehend to bring about the change.
He does his work
In
by
man.
night.
Yes, by night, not in the night.
Yes.
By night. That's because it's not
It's
a
a
time
mean.
of day. By night.
Yeah.
You see, he does his work by night to effect the change in man. So when the day comes, which is the light, the significance of light, a man can now see
And know how to
and
really
know how
walk.
to step, know how to walk. So it's as, I don't want to say it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, but
It's a mystery thing. Oh.
mystery. But just as we have come to understand
Yeah.
that every mystery has its principles.
Yeah.
And once you follow the principles the way they ought to be, the mystery will be revealed to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you wanted to say something earlier?
What I wanted to add is just the issue of this, the night of a thing, because if you look at the world today, you can see a lot of confusion everywhere. The so-called, let me use the word, the so-called preachers, who's supposed to be the one that bring the light, but because the light is not given to men,
Yes.
light is given to the person. That's why I call the chosen one.
Yes.
The chosen one is the one with the light. So when he said, ye are the light of the world, he's talking about the chosen one, but that first by whom he has imputed that spirit, that Holy Spirit in.
Yes.
So that person is the one that is going to light the world, show the world all the things we have been trying to figure out in the dark. And they were not working. You see that this person will just be there and no one voice, things will change.
Yes.
And that's what we have been seeing.
Yes.
That by the voice of one person, things are changing.
Yes.
Things are changing, not changing for you to go and make money. Because that is not in the program of God.
God, yeah.
The
Like
change is
some
not
people are
outwardly.
talking today. That's why the program of God is that when that voice comes, it comes to sound a warning to you, to bring that change, to remove you from that activities of that death
Yes.
to the activities of life.
Yes.
That has no business with money. And anyone who does not function according to that, or who has not heard from that person, cannot say he knows who God is.
Yes.
That's just what I wanted to add.
Okay,
Because the confusion that we see today come as a result of that night. And when the light is now made available, everyone need to wake up and embrace it quick.
The light has come.
Okay, so let's look at what we have from the video. So you can hit play on it.
See, when we talk about crossover, many of us think just about December 31st. That's a good day to consider a crossover, but that will be a crossover from one year to another. There are several other crossovers. And in fact, in a single crossover, many things can happen. For example, when a lady stands beside a man before a pastor in a church, and the church having asked the man, will you take this woman as your lawful wedded wife, etc., etc., and the man has said, I do. And then the pastor turns to the woman. He said to the woman, will you take this man as your lawful wedded husband, etc., etc.? Oh God, the pastor is asking the woman to make a very serious crossover. Because the moment she says, I do, and the man of God says, I hereby pronounce you husband and wife. Oh my God. Suddenly, the woman has crossed over into a new name, crossover into a new accommodation, crossover into a new responsibility, etc., etc. If 10 minutes later, she says, I'm no longer interested. I want the marriage nullified. It could be done. But things can't return to where it was before.
Okay, let's hit pause. I purposely let him get to that point. I wanted him to finish what he had to say about that married jamboree he was talking about. You can see what his description of crossover is. Now I get why we had to at least let our viewers understand what the crossover is from our own perspective before we get into the video.
Yeah.
So the things are not mixed up. But one thing is for certain, crossover signifies change.
Yeah.
Either way you look at it.
Yes.
Whether it's from, as he said, December 31st to 1st of January, it's a change of, well, that one, I don't know if I should.
Before as he started, he said first that crossover, many people think crossover is just about
December 31st
changing from December, crossing from December 31st to January 1st. So for him, he believed that is not what crossover is.
That's not that's not the only thing you can tie crossover to. That's why he's now giving
Another example of what he...
another instance of what he feels should be regarded as crossover too as well. But what I'm saying is that
what you say, let's look at it this way. Crossover is a change of state from one state to another state.
as simple as that.
So
That's basically all it implies. Either way or either instance you want to introduce, it just signifies a change of state, a change of something. It just signifies change. But remember, we always talk about change and how change is not always positive. I remember everybody was joking about the previous administration, talking about when they started their campaign. They were talking about bringing change. Yeah. So down the line, everybody was like, which kind of change did they bring? That certain goods were cheap before their time. Then as they came on board, things became expensive. But that's a change. But that's a change.
It might not be to your
favor. Might not be to your favor, just as Ada said. But it's a change. That means something has occurred. Yes. So either way you want to look at it, that's what crossover implies. But what we are trying to clear is that impression of all he's saying now, that crossover is from December 31st to January 1st. He's giving another instance of getting married. What we are trying to do on this particular episode is to clear out all that from the table and let everybody understand what truly crossover is, what it implies, a change of state, but not from January 1st not from December 31st to January 1st, not from marrying, not from being single to getting married, not change of husband, not change of name, not change of anything he might want to talk about in this video.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to say this, because we talked about the concept of God.
Yes.
And we talk about the ideology of men.
Yes.
This is the idea of men.
Yes.
So I want everyone listening to understand this thing. This is idea of men. an idea of men, you cannot use it to attribute to God.
Yes.
Everyone should understand that today, that the men we are seeing, they are the men, not God.
Yes.
God is a person that will born like the man, a man too, in a generation, and that bring out the standard of that living that will bring that change.
Yes.
First, he said that crossover is not really that crossing from 31st to
January 1st.
January 1st. But that is what you are doing as crossover. This is what we organize as crossover. So how can a man that is coming from God say that crossover is not 31st, but you are doing that thing that you are saying?
Yes. So
Do
where
you
did
see?
get
Do you see how we are?
Yes.
You know, or maybe you have an instinct that tells you that this thing is not like this, but you are still doing it. That's why I'm not saying this to blame anybody, but I'm saying it because a man's way is not of himself.
Yes.
Everyone today in the world, he said, we are all going out of the way. We are all. Now, when you now sit down to tell the people that crossover is not really crossing over from 31st, correct.
It's not just that.
We agree.
Yes.
Then you should not carry that kind of program as a crossover and attribute it to God.
Yes.
Because there are millions of people looking towards to you, up to you, to lead them to the path of God. But you know that this thing is not the path of God. Now you are now bringing another instance as an example to show them.
Yes.
Which is that example is very necessary. Because that is crossover. But that way he's explaining is the crossover of men that is using that instances. Because one, remember we talked about a wife, who a wife should be to God. We are supposed to be a wife to God.
Both the male and the female.
Both the male and the female. So when the person now is becoming a wife to a husband, it means you have been crossed over from death to life.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yes.
But it's not, that is why we talk about marriage, that marriage is between the Spirit of God or God and his people. But today, this is what we do as marriage. The male now that will go and take the female, that is the man, being the male man, will go and buy the female man. And we that are claim that we are coming from God, we are the one ordaining this thing. And we are now forbidding the marriage that's supposed to be of God. Because that our activities of marriage, that traditional activities, has now taken away the real activities that's supposed to be. That's why when the birth of God, that spirit now birth himself in a generation, that person now come to do the correction from the living standard that we as human has been living. I don't know whether you are following the point.
Yes.
So I'm bringing this based on what you just said so that anybody listening to us should understand that what I'm saying on this very statement you just made is that, one, if you are coming from God and you know that crossover is a way that a man must cross from death to life,
Yes.
then you cannot organize that by 31st of December against January. And you also know that there is a process that must bring that crossover to somebody. It's not by saying, I prophesy to you this night, you will cross over.
Yes.
So it means you are still dancing within the ways of man.
Yes.
That cannot be the ways of God. I am saying that is the standard of what is going on.
Yes.
But I'm using this thing to say to anyone out there to understand that there is the choosing one of God that must show us the real path of God. That when anybody apply it, you see that the life that we hunger for, that we cry for, that we weep for, will return back. That's why I said from the one that we cannot use the formula you are using for death. Is the formula you want to use and get life. It's not possible now.
That's why I actually wanted to draw our attention to that. We have established that crossover is for change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you're doing that human crossover from December 31st to January 1st, that there is no change outside of the name of the month, December and January.
Yes.
The year tag we have given it, 2023 to 2024. That outside of those things, nothing changes because we still carry on with the same activities.
Yes.
Everything we did the previous year is what we are going to do the next year.
Even worse than themselves sometimes.
So basically, there is no change.
Yes.
When you relate it to the marriage instance he was given, when you are doing your so-called crossover from being that single person to the married
Another
state,
person.
nothing really changes.
Yeah.
Because the same activities you are carrying out as a single person is the same thing you are now carrying out as a married person. Even more complicated, because in that sense now, you are now going to contend with God for an office he alone holds supremacy over.
Yeah.
As a male, when you go to get married, you are contending to be a father and a
And the
husband.
husband.
As a
Which will have been
female,
warned.
as a female, when you are going to get married, you are contesting too to be a father, even if what you're called is a mother, because a mother is someone who should give birth. It brings about life, and we can't do that.
Yes.
So you are contending too with a position that is reserved for God, because He's the only one that can bring about life to His people.
Yes.
Now you are now going to have offsprings which you have claimed to be your own children, laying ownership over them. So you now see that basically nothing changes. Instead, your activity, what's that word they use? Metamorphose.
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 Yeah,
It's my
metamorphose.
funny tongue. But that's what happens. It doesn't change. It just evolves from eating bole and fish to chopping what's this other hard thing. It's like moving from biscuit to palm kernel, or from frying pan to fire, something like that.
Yeah.
So
That's the
There's something
way
that
we
he
can
said.
describe it.
There's something that he said. You know, I just said that this illustration that he used concerning marriage, the one that I'm not saying it surprised me, but surprising in the sense that we out there, we can't see. So it should not. What should surprise anybody listening to us now is that this thing these people are talking, where is it coming from? That's what should surprise anybody listening to us. The surprise I use is not me. I want somebody listening to be surprising from what he's hearing from us against what they are saying. Because he used the word, you are now bearing a new name. Correct. But the new name that you bear here in these instances is not now. If you were, what do you call, Glory Peter. Now you have now married to Kufre Amasi. You are now bearing Glory Kufre. That is humanly. That is human activities. But because the names are function, so the new name we are now going to bear, when we are now following the program, the process that will now change us from our own state to the state of God, being married to that God, is now the function of God we've been carrying. So we have been carrying the function of men,
yes.
which is now where death dwells. So we are now going to carry a function that will bring that life. So you see that the part of God bring a new function. You call it a new tongue.
Yes.
So all these things, they connect. There is nothing in the scripture or the Spirit has come to reveal now by that person that you don't see that everything connects. The only thing that brings confusion to us as humans is when men like this are the one now trying to take the place of God, but they are not God.
Remember, that's why we said everything we have talked about on this forum borders around that change.
Yeah.
Either it's marriage, whether it's the storehouse, whether it's anything we have talked about, that's all it borders around.
Yes.
That change from man to life,
Yeah.
Yes.
from death to life, rather,
Yes.
from the nature of man to the nature of God.
Yes.
Because
Which is a woman.
you can just see any way you want to look at it. Yeah, but Akufe just pointed out the name change he talked about. You can now see that if you watch our episode on marriage, you still get to see that it all borders around a crossover, a change.
Yeah.
Because once you are marrying into that spirit of God, which is of life, definitely, remember it has been described that he prepares his bride and presents that
To
bride
himself.
to himself.
Yeah.
So it shows you a work that is done on a person that brings about change, that makes you acceptable to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
So everything borders around change.
Yeah.
Staiti, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say something concerning the crossover as we are still discussing.
Yeah.
I say if you look at the crossover that we men are doing, the crossover, you see that there are a lot of people who don't go to that 31st December
Yeah.
in order to enter 1st January. Unlike what you mentioned, that even the person that died on that day went for the crossover. But you see others that they were not going there, but they are still continue. To really see that there's what the spirit that brought us called crossover, which is not even written in the Bible, as we say, but rather Passover. No, our own crossover, we do it 31st December to crossover the 1st December, 1st January. But when it comes to God, there's a process. Our own, there's no process. You understand? You just decide to do what you have to do. God's own has a process that you have to pass. That's why it has to be passed over. You pass over something. You know, there's a screening in order to reach a point that you
To be
have
qualified.
Yes, to pass over. But our own is just when you reach there, you can cross.
That's
So
why he said that these people honor me with their mouth, but their heart is very far from me, because the heart, like we have said before, is where you bring to where the storehouse is
Yes.
for a walk, for the preparation, before you can offer your body as a living sacrifice for the walk.
Yes.
I just tip that in.
Yeah.
So in that case, you really see that the things we are doing, which is the ideas of men, the way the Spirit allows us to do. So I just want us to see that if this thing were like that, because even the thing that we carry out from the Bible, which is a standard we're supposed to follow, even when we don't even see the one that this thing is written about, because we have been doing it without the person, to even get a little bit closer to what should be, we don't even have it. So if that thing were the way it's supposed to be, you see that there's nobody that will not go to crossover, that will be able to cross over to another year.
Yeah.
But because it's not what it is, that's why whether you go, you don't go, it doesn't have effect. For some people, because you go there, maybe you see another day, you think that it's because of you went. That's why you could see. But do you also consider people who don't care, who don't even know what you call crossover, but they are still living, to show that that's not the standard of God. That's not the concept of the Spirit.
And this thing is not about being Christian.
Yes.
That's why I want everyone to understand this, that we keep saying here that we are not a religious group. This is not because you are a Christian or you are a Muslim this is a program that need to be applied to every human.
Yes.
Everything that God mentioned or God put in writing or in a concept, a plan that is going to carry out, is going to carry out by God,
Yes.
into human.
Yes.
Human.
So wherever you're born, whether you are a Christian, whether you are a Hindu, whether you are a pagan,
As far
wherever
as
you are,
man.
that's why we keep saying that the Bible is not a book for a Christian.
Yes.
Because he said, if any man will come to me, let him. I used to ask, Muslim, are they not men?
Yes.
Christians, are they not men?
Amen.
Pagans, are they not men? Hindu, even those who doesn't believe in any religion, they are men.
So
it shows us that the path of God, when God is in the midst of men, is going to set a standard that will unify everyone
yes.
into that one circle.
Yes.
And you cannot get that when this one has built his own church and his own denomination and take it church, give him one title. Those are the things that we need. That is why I said it is time for us, because the light has come to shine on us. It's a privilege
Yes.
that we can live what we think we know and seek for this person now for things to get better.
Now, before we move on, there was something else he said that needs a little clarity.
Okay.
He talked about the lady changing her mind, even if it's after 10 minutes, so that she can just decide to change her mind. That even if they can annul the marriage, but her state can't be changed again. Yeah, it won't be the same again.
Because that is how it is.
Before we even get to saying that that's how it is, because even when you say that's how it is, it still needs further explanation.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that change is permanent. Once it involves that actual crossover,
Crossover.
Yes.
it's permanent.
Yes.
It's not something you can change your mind have crossed from death to life, and you are now in life wanting to change your mind,
Back to death.
back to
That
death.
is the person that was still in the process.
Camilo.
But Chidubem, before
Yeah.
we go into that, I think we should talk about how to achieve the crossover.
Basically, we have been talking about it in bits without necessarily dwelling on it.
Yeah.
But as we go on, we might summarize our moment today by
How to achieve.
how we can achieve that crossover. But if you have been listening keenly, you will realize that we have talked about how it can be achieved, because we are talking about a crossover or a change that happens when the person of God is on ground.
Yes.
We have talked about how that work is done by night, because he is the one who does the work.
Yes.
So it shows that a process is on ground that we need to undergo to have that change. But all this have been spoken about in bits. But before we round up, we will definitely touch it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That from that point you were driving from what he just said. There's something I wanted to add, because it's a process. Whatever thing that you have as a process is a process. It means somebody is undergoing a training. But you see, in the training, that's why I said, let he that thinketh he standeth take it, lest he fall. Because in that process, your head should not be big that you have gotten it.
Yes.
That's why I said before that it's not something that you can know when it happens.
Yes.
So all you all need to do is to walk while it is there. Walk. Instruction is coming. Follow the instruction. Guide yourself. Whatever change, whatever change that the Spirit will bring into you, it's not your work. Your work is what has the voice said I should do. That you do. But because it's a process, he said anyone that put his hand in that plow and turn back, he said it's not worthy of him.
Yes.
So that's where you see most of these things. Along that process that you are, when he said he cannot go back, does not mean that the person cannot go back. But because that transformation has not been complete yet, it hasn't complete yet, that's when the person can go back. But if he complete, the person can never go back.
that's why I can't call it a crossover, because just as I said earlier, that the main crossover, what the crossover actually implies when it involves that person of God who carries it out, it's permanent.
Yes.
So what you have just talked about now, it's a person who is still in that process of
Reaching the place.
attaining that change.
Yes. The crossover
And
bridge.
decides for whatever reason to fall out of it.
Yes.
That
Like,
instance of
To buttress what Bro Kufre said, I think it should be what is required for you to achieve that crossover, so that you will not fall out of it while the process is going on. What is required of you, which is when the training is ongoing, the things that are required of you to do, which is key into the instruction that have been given to you by that very person, that personality of God. And also, endurance is part of it, long suffering, because this person, you might see him as your fellow man. Physically,
look
you
like
might see him
you.
as fellow. Yes, he may look like you, but what is inside him is bigger than whatever you can even imagine. So you don't take him as your fellow man. You take him as someone with the higher power, which is God. So you obey whatever he says, even when you don't feel comfortable doing those things. But for the fact that you know that this person is not a man, it is God. So I have to do it. That's where endurance comes in, long suffering and humility. You know, we men, we don't understand what humility is. What we exhibit as humility is not what humility is. It's just pride. But when the actual God appears to us and reveal himself to us, that's when we know that true, we haven't been exhibiting that, yeah, we're not humble. So it's required us to be humble, because someone you know that, okay, for example, the person can appear in a way that you're even better than him, like in a human sense, human eye. You're better than him, you are more bigger than the person. But for the fact that this person is not your fellow man, you should humble yourself and bring yourself down. That is what's required of you in order for you to achieve that crossover. And it's not a one day, it's not something you can do your finger like this and it will happen. It's a process and it takes time. As you keep listening to what he says and put it into practice, you will see the changes happening in your life. That's what I want to contribute.
Okay, so I want us to play the video, but just to summarize what we just talked about briefly, as it relates to having to go back after you have crossed over for better clarity, is that crossover, as it relates to God, is a permanent change.
Yes.
Once
When
you have,
one is achieved.
once you have transitioned from death to life, it's permanent. It's for eternity.
Yes.
So his description of having to change your mind 10 minutes later, that's the instance of the lady getting married, is when you are in that process.
And that is a man thing.
And is it, well, his own is a man thing, but we are trying to relate it to this God thing now, how it implies, or how you can find yourself in that kind of situation when it relates to this God thing.
Is when you are still in the process of refining.
Yes, when that change has not, when you have not attained that change,
Yes.
when you are still undergoing
is
that
not complete
process
yet.
of change, and
Let's call it when you have not achieved the final approval, because the change first, as we keep knowing change to be, when the personality is there speaking and you are following, something is changing.
Yes.
But the final approval is where that life that we call crossover, that is the person has been moved from that life, that death state to a life state. It's just like when he said, "Thou art worthy."
Yes.
Thou art worthy. That is
To
a
now
final
receive,
seal. When
to
one
now
is sealed,
receive.
just like a seal of approval.
Yes.
Okay, so that scenario can only apply to this to the part of God when you haven't gotten that seal of
Yes.
approval,
Yes.
and you find yourself out of his process.
Yes.
because that's how I used to screen
Yes, and definitely you can't remain the same even when you are going back to
the world.
Yes. Because you have now come to know something.
Yes.
And you just know within you that what you have come to know, who you have come to meet, it has just thwarted your whole system.
Because
you
that's
can't
when-
go
that-
back. You
that's
can't
when
go
they-
back and you can't go back
And be the
even
same.
even if you're doing the same thing others are doing.
Yes.
But it's just like when he said that he shall now surely die.
Yes.
Because you now know that the way the world is functioning is out of course.
Yes.
And this time now you know is out of course.
Yes.
That is
Before-
where he said that in a way. He said, "If I have not come and spoken unto you."
Yes.
your
You
sin
have
does
not
not
sinned.
count. Yeah.
Counted.
But when I come and speak to you, he said there is no way for you to hide your sin again.
Yes.
Because it will be anywhere you go to do something, you will remember it. He will just show you. Because it's a language on his own.
Yes.
Anyway, he carry you to apply in the world, he will remind you that you have run away from something.
Yes.
So
That's actually when you read 2 Corinthians chapter 5:17, that talks about the new creature.
Yeah.
That therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. All things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. So the things will be, you know, all the things that you have been involved before will be like old things to you. You'll not even feel comfortable with them anymore. Even when they're happening around you, you not feel comfortable with them anymore because you have come past through that stage.
The woman now can no longer be called a maiden. She'll be called divorcee. It will be a different person. even if they cancel the marriage. Tonight, somebody's about to cross over. And in crossing over tonight, whether you like it or not, things will never be the same again. In the example that I read in the text, and like I said, I want to hurry. When the children of Israel cross over the Red Sea, they cross over to permanent freedom. They tried later on to say we want to go back to Egypt, but it wasn't possible. Because the Red Sea had closed behind them. Somebody is about to cross over to permanent freedom tonight. They cross over forever, free from generational problems. The enemies they saw the night before, they never saw them again forever. The enemies that you have up to this moment, I am decreeing in the name of the one who is called the Son of God. You will never see them again.
So I'll be very brief because basically what he's dwelling on now is what we just talked about before we played the video again. But you can now see now that there's now a twist in the plot in his description.
Yeah.
Say that the children of Israel crossed over the Red Sea to permanent freedom.
Yeah.
Then down the line, they wanted to go back and they
The Red Sea
couldn't
don't
because
close.
the Red Sea had closed.
There's something wrong there.
There's something wrong somewhere because having described that crossover is permanent
And it was freedom.
and it was freedom,
So how come?
what warranted
Are you running away from
what
the
warranted
freedom
them to
now?
want to run away from that freedom,
Freedom.
from that permanent freedom?
Yes.
You can now see that down the line, following his own description of things, that a crossover is meant to be permanent.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see, but earlier I had talked about how you can change your mind.
Yes.
But you can see he started making declarations and every of how anything that should happen after your crossover has happened should be permanent.
Yes.
So you see where the limitation of man is.
Yes.
You see where our lack of knowledge is. Because when he says, my people perish for lack of
Destroy.
knowledge, are destroyed rather for lack of knowledge, you see it. As Sister Abby said in one of our previous episodes, said that all they do is that they just dabble.
Yes.
And they dabble in the sense that they think they know what it is.
Just open
So
your mouth. Something will come
They
out.
just step on one leg, vomit whatever comes to their mind. They vomit it through their mouth. They
and-
step on that leg and do the same thing.
This also comes to mind. If actually, that's why we keep saying in this forum, there was no Jesus that came to die. Because if there was a Jesus that came to die so that man will not die again, there will be no need for all this. So if he is making declarations, I ask, what about the Jesus that they believe in that died for man not to die again? Because that work was supposed to be permanent.
Yeah.
And there will be no need for any crossover of that. There will be no need for 31st.
Any form of crossover.
Any form of crossover, because somebody died over 2,000 years ago.
So that we can cross into life.
Somebody did the crossover by dying so that we will cross over into life.
Yes.
There will be no need for prayers, talking into an empty airspace. Because 2,000 years ago, somebody carried that cross and died so that we will live forever. So if there is a man standing on the pulpit and declaring, that means there is something wrong.
There is.
That means that there was no Jesus that did anything.
It's what it is.
So it is realized that we men are still dying. So there was no Jesus that died so that we will not die. That is why you're standing on the pulpit to make your own declarations. Now, upon your own declarations, these people are still dying. To show that the real crossover is supposed to take place by the person of God.
Yes.
You see that when,
Who is life
when
himself?
somebody does not have the thing, the highest you can do is, I declare to you. Listen, the work of God
You can't declare.
towards man, the declaration is not, I declare to you. The declaration that the personality of God comes to do, which is what we have been discussing from the one that we started this podcast, is that there is a correction that humanity needs.
Yes. We must.
There is a way we are living that is not right, which is the same thing that we are talking here. How can you tell a people who is not functioning according to the principle of their creator that I say to you this night, somebody will cross over to permanent solution?
Who gives you?
Now, you are talking about the crossover, that the people cross over to permanent solution. Are you now telling us that they don't have a work? So they just walk for road, cross over to solution.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Because you cannot declare to a people who are not following the path of God by mouth.
Yes.
The declaration is showing them what they are doing that is not right.
Because
That
you
is
don't.
the whole duty of the personality of God.
Yes.
He said in Jeremiah 23, first he said, woe be to the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastors.
Pasture.
These scriptures, this very scripture is very important for people to understand what he's talking about. Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastors. Remember, how did they destroy them? That thing we call knowledge is what is destroying the people.
Yes.
But for God, he sees it as lack of knowledge. Because when you are feeding a people with a knowledge that cannot lead them to the eternal purpose why they were born, which you don't know, you are causing more harm than good.
Yes.
You can't tell a people that is not obeying the principle of God that they will never die. Moses never said so to the children of Israel.
Yes.
According to the right.
According to the writing. No prophet of God, according to the writing, ever said that.
Yes.
Any prophet that is coming from that spirit, which has never been, except now,
Yes.
is that there is a living way that man has been living because of the state of man, which is sin, unaware. So now I am coming out to bring them back to the glory, original glory, which I planned, which is called the latter house glory.
Yes.
Is that is going to prepare them, show them the way because they don't know.
Yes.
You can't do that work if you have not been given.
Yes.
Now, when you try to take up the work, which is what Brother David said before, that the night no man can walk in the night, we should not put it as if no man is not working, that people are not working something. But that whatever you think you are working, because it's a night, you don't know what you are doing.
There's no
Based on
purpose.
that.
That is why we keep stumbling. But when the light comes, there is no stumble anymore. Because the light comes to shine on you, then you can know how to walk. He said, let me read it.
Where are you reading from?
I'm reading from Jeremiah 23,
Okay.
from 14. Savior, let me read it from 14 to 18.
Jeremiah chapter 23 from 14. I have seen also in the prophets of Jerusalem an horrible thing. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They strengthen also the hands of evildoers, that none doth return from his wickedness. They are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. Therefore, thus said the Lord of hosts concerning the prophets, Behold, I will feed them with wormwood,
Confusion.
and make them drink the water of gall. For from the prophets of Jerusalem is profaneness gone forth into all the land.
Yeah.
Thus said the Lord of hosts, Hearken not unto the words of the prophets that prophesy unto you. They make you vain. They speak a vision of their own hearts,
Yes.
and not out of the mouth of the Lord. They say still unto them that despise me, The Lord hath said, Ye shall have peace. And they say unto everyone that walketh after the imagination of his own heart, No evil shall come upon you. For who hath stood in the counsel of the Lord, and had perceived and heard his word? Who had marked his word and heard it? Behold, a wild wind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a grievous wild wind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked.
It's okay.
He just basically described all these things we do in the
That's
name
why I
of,
said no explanation.
in the name of pastor say this, pastor say that, do this, do that. Say that it shall be well with you, it shall be this
He
with
said
you.
they say still to the same people that despise me.
And,
Shall
you,
be
and,
well.
and you can just see, just as we have been talking, or just as we have been saying, that everything we do as man is out of the ways of God. Completely. So how does a person who claims to come from God not know that the activities of man, the way of man, his lifestyle is out of the way of God, and is coming to declare blessings, supposed blessing of God on those people? That's what you have just described now.
Yeah.
That's because that person, that man who is claiming to come from God, is not coming from God. It's just a claim. He himself is involved in those same activities.
Yeah.
So he can't say otherwise. He can't do otherwise.
And when we are saying this, it's not, we are not blaming anybody. Everybody need to understand that. We keep saying here, we are not here to, to point a finger at somebody. No. We said here before, and we are saying it again, and we continue to say it, that the first phase of man, all of us, has been under that wrong foundation.
Yes.
Nobody can ever be right when you are under a wrong foundation.
Yes.
The only one that is right is when the time of the Spirit is ready. He provided a vessel that he called the choosing one, and now bring himself into that person, make himself available in a generation, but through that person, then we can now gain access to him from that person.
Yes.
So to say we have God, it means that person must be with us.
Yes.
If anybody does not access this person, nobody can claim out there that I have God, because nobody there have God.
Yes.
I'm only saying this for everyone to understand that.
Okay.
Yes.
So right now, I want us to basically round up by now being clear about how we can achieve this. We have talked about it in bits, even after Brother Camillus had pointed it out. We had still talked about it in bits, and I'm saying this because I basically don't see any other need for continuing with the video.
No, the last part of the video carries that. The last part of that video carries something like that.
Okay, that's because I basically I want us to just conclude what we have, so we don't drag it out for too long. Okay, so hit play on it.
Why? Because the Bible says, whomsoever the Son has set free shall be free indeed. I'm bold enough to say to someone that after tonight, you won't weep again. You say, sir, how can you be bold to say that? Because it is written, weeping may endure for a night. Joy comes in the morning. Oh, many a times we think that the morning means 7 a.m. When the sun rises, no, the morning begins at midnight. That's when we begin to talk about a.m.
Please, just hit pause on that.
Okay.
There's really nothing much to say about it because we have already talked about it. But when he just quoted that weeping might endure for the night,
Yes.
but joy cometh in the morning. That's just the typical. How will I put
explained that
this?
already.
Yeah, we've explained that, but that's just the typical implication of crossover and why it happens at night.
Yeah.
Because
Not
by night rather. Why happens by night? Because the weeping comes by night, and we have described that night to be that moment of darkness, not
confusion.
because of the time of day, but the moment of confusion when we as men don't understand or know what's happening, even when we are doing what we are doing in it, which is the lifestyle of man. So the joy that comes in the morning still isn't the time of day.
Yes.
Which was what I thought he was driving. He wanted to arrive at. Then,
How do you expect him to arrive at?
well, that's why I said I thought that was what he wanted to arrive at.
That's why we are here
then,
now.
then he came up with no, it's not 7 a.m. It's midnight.
And it started from when
Oh,
the
my
sun, when the sun shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. That's where it started from, which is there must be that person that has to make you free. But him is standing there to present himself as a person, which is after you have prophesied to the people, you will not see sorrow again. That doesn't stop it because you are not the one.
That statement that we keep making, this is how that statement apply. We've said here that the only way that a man can be called of God, can be of God, is when that person has been made according to the image to become that son of God. Because first, God come in a generation, in the person.
Yes.
And now the person prepare the people through the process that they will now become his children, his own product.
Yes.
So until you become that product, you are not free.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's not like there's one son somewhere that will come that will make you free.
Yes.
The making is that God come to make you to become a son. That is the only way you are free.
Yes.
Because you have been removed from that bondage of corruption. It's not like somebody comes somewhere and make you free. No. But when you are talking about God, God is the one that is coming to make you to become a son so that you can be free from that life of bondage.
And it has to be making. This our own is not making, it's prophesy. You just say to the people. God himself, which is the one that even have the overall power, he has never said to people, you are free.
Now we are talking about how can this be possible? That is what it is.
Yes.
How can this be possible? Because one, I've said, it is the way it is. That is the fact.
Yes.
If we must get things right, that is what the chosen one has come to show us. And we are following it. That the only way a man can be free from death is when he has met to become a son. That is a product of God.
Yes.
Now, how can we get that? Is what Children was asking before. How can we achieve that? Is the question. You can't achieve that by, in the night I prophesy to you, crossover. No. I said from day one we have been talking about this thing. That there is a process that one must undergo. And this process begins when God is made available in the midst of a people.
Yes.
He shows us a standard on how we need to live life.
Yes.
Today, we are buying and we are selling. We buy, we sell.
Yes.
And the program of God said, those that be accounted shall be accounted worthy to obtain my life. They don't buy and they don't sell.
Yes. But they
Because the
don't
life,
own.
you are talking about the life of freedom. I don't want to say I think. I would prefer that we have part 2 of this crossover. I don't know, but I think I would prefer we have part 2, because when we are going to the details of how we can achieve this, there are things that we need to point out. There are activities that we have been involved in. I don't know, but I'm only saying it.
Basically, that's how it is. That's why I said I wanted us to dwell on it with the brief time we had. But since you have brought it up about having another episode on crossover, it will definitely join the list of pending issues that we are planning on revisiting.
Yes.
So, but just to round up, because I'm not going to be continuing with the video again. We'll round up by just, I think I've already tried to explain how we can achieve this, but just for courtesy's sake, we'll repeat it again.
Yes.
That crossover as changing from the state of death to life
Yes.
can only be achieved when the person of God is in the midst of the people.
Yes.
Because he is that life.
Yes.
And you can't change from death to life outside of the person who comes with the life.
Yes. Not possible.
Then again, you can't just have that by a snap of his finger.
Because there are things that we need to do.
Yes.
Because just as Brother Kufre was trying to point out, there are things that we as men have been involved with. It's buried deep down
In our core.
that's in our bone marrows. That's where those things have been buried, our nature. So that nature doesn't just change by the snap of a finger.
Yes.
It takes a process. He referred to Malachi 3 from verses 1 downwards, that a messenger is sent that purifies the people, that purges them,
So that they can be
as
accepted.
iron, as gold, as silver.
Yes.
And if you know what it takes to purify and purge gold and silver, you know that it's a very rigorous process.
Yes.
It's a very rigorous procedure. So it shows you the effort that is required of us as a people to undergo that change that will bring about that life.
Yes.
But someone must sit as a meal.
It's a
Because the
refiner.
meal is where the presence of that spirit has come to station.
Yes.
That is where all the instruction will be coming from.
Yes.
Like he said, guide the people. I just want to chip that in.
That's why he says you should bring our tithes to the storehouse. And we describe the tithe as our hearts, as that nature that drives our being.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should bring it to that person of God, to submit
refine
to that
it.
person of God, because he's the one who does the purging
Yeah.
and the purifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, we can only achieve crossover. This is me trying to be as brief as possible. That the only way we can achieve the true crossover as it relates to God is only when that person of God is on ground and we locate him for him to do the work which is required of him, which has been prophesied in the book that he is
Concerning
meant
him.
to do, the work that is concerning him that he should do on us, because that's basically what the entire Bible is all about. How we as men can transition from the state of death to the state of life. So locating this person is one step. The next step is to keep to the things which he demands of us. That is the second step. And to die off the ways of men and to key into the ways which would bring about that life. So I can summarize this by saying that God does not come to save you,
Yeah.
to save us.
Yes.
That he comes that we might be saved. Meaning, when he makes himself available in a generation, in the midst of a people, He's not coming to look for us to effect that change on us. No, he expects we come after him. We come in search of him to have that change for ourselves. So he comes that we might have life, meaning we are the ones to make the move and find ourselves at his feet. So that work which will bring about that change can be done in us.
Yes.
So far so good. I think that we have done our bit. I don't want to say our best. We have done our bit in trying to discuss the issue of the crossover.
Yeah.
All I would say is that you should watch out for our next video on this issue of crossover, where we'll be dwelling deeply on how we can actually achieve this crossover. So I would say on this note that we have come to the end of today's episode. And as usual, if you have any inquiries, you send us an email via the addresses on the screen. I will be sure to get back to you. And if you wish to join us live in our sessions, indicate that in your mail and we'll establish a video link via any video streaming platform, be it Zoom, Google Meet, or Skype. That procedure doesn't require any monetary charge. All you need is your access to the internet and you can get to be with us. So we'll say bye for now till we come your way next time.